Well, hello again, race fans, and welcome to another round of the U.S. IndyCar League right here on VirtualRacing.Network. So great to have you along with us today as we get set for action at one of the best IndyCar ovals on the calendar for sure. It is the Iowa Speedway, and you are watching the ALZ.org Iowa presented. It's the Iowa 190 presented by Stickwick. So great to be back here at Iowa. The real life IndyCar is going to be back here at Iowa as well, and always a great track for these cars. Get a chance to see them really racing well on these mid-size to smaller ovals where they excel, and there's not too much aero push, but that all comes down to these great drivers, the stars and cars out here in the U.S. IndyCar League. And as they head down onto the track, they get set for today's action and get qualified up. See who will start at the front of the running order. Jump on down to trackside and see that David Zaleski is actually back out there in the field today, and that's great news for everybody. Of course, my name is Trevor Greenfield. I'll be calling all of today's action as I do each and every week for you here on VirtualRacing.Network. And so grateful to all of you who tune in each and every week to catch what is our favorite IndyCar series in the world. A chance for all of these great drivers here on iRacing to come out and show their stuff on Sunday mornings. And what a great international field it is. Of course, the U.S. IndyCar League soon to be changing its name to the International IndyCar League. Just a reflection of how great this international crowd is. Somebody joining us there as a subscriber, we do appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe. Of course, hit that big red button and like this video for more as we watch Mauro Ramirez, MJ Ramirez there for Black Tiger Racing, put in his qualifying laps. That will put him up to third fastest thus far. We've got another driver who we don't normally get to see out there. It's Danny Alt. He's putting in his times, and that is great news for us all. We've seen him in a couple of races here on the network. He always shows up for the races, but doesn't always make the green flag. Today, hopefully he will. Puts in his time in the black machine, and does not improve from that sixth fastest time. But here's the man behind the name of the race, the sponsor, ALZ.org. If you don't know him by now, you should become familiar because he is also our latest race winner in the U.S. IndyCar League last week. Those of you who didn't see it, you might check it out. It was a great moment, and a moment where Dan's fuel-saving strategy finally came to fruition in the way that we always think it can each and every week. But Dan taking victory there and being able to get the awareness out for Alzheimer's Association, which of course is the title sponsor for today's race. Thanks once again to Dan Ensch for that and bringing that about. So we watch on screen now with Graham Bunyan. Let's ride around here. We'll jump on top of the car. See as he heads through turn 3 and 4, keeps it down along that yellow line. Right at the apex, let it swing out and back down at the at the center of the tri-oval, so to speak, there. And Graham Bunyan taking pole position provisionally thus far, as his fellow teammate over there in Australia, David Strid, now taking second place. No surprises there, and unfortunately it looks like David Worrell, Dave in the Cave, having a bit of a surprise from his side on that final qualifying lap. Not quite able to get in a super fast time today. Just 10 drivers taking times, but we do have, I believe, 15 cars ready to go here for the start of today's race. So we will see how many will take the grid, but thus far it is Graham Bunyan who has taken pole position, a 16.79, able to do that on his second lap. And if you just look at how close those times are there at the top, as we wait to see if anybody else will even attempt a lap. I don't think anyone will, so we'll just wait for this one to go official here in just about 30 seconds. But you can see that it's so close. Just officially, let's see, in our timing and score, it says 0.03. That's 3/1000ths of a second separating first from fourth. Graham Bunyan, David Strid, Jason Lowe, and Dominic Hart. And so we look on today to see who will be able to get it done. And we'll get this information off the screen and get you set for today's race. Of course, my name is Trevor Greenfield. I've been with you since season 10, the very end of season 10. And it's been a great ride. So if you've missed any of those races, make sure to go back here in our YouTube. You'll be able to check all of them out in their entirety. And you can just have a good old binge fest of US IndyCar League and see how it's worked over the years. I tell you what, the first season we came in, we thought it was the Jason Lowe show, but he had this guy, Graham Bunyan, that he was very aware of at the time could be a driver that could give anybody trouble and be up there, be competitive each and every week. And sure enough, that has come to fruition in the last several seasons. Graham Bunyan coming out of nowhere to just absolutely obliterate the titles of this championship for multiple seasons in a row, 4 in a row. And now we get into season 15, and things have changed quite dramatically. But I'll tell you one thing that has not changed, and that is Graham Bunyan and David Strid are still the speediest drivers, I think, in this league as far as qualifying. So we wait for these drivers here to finally make their way down there. We'll see if we can get some more cameras pointed at them momentarily. So circulating overhead, as I mentioned, we get set for today's race. It's going to be 218 laps here around the speedway, which sounds like a lot, but you got to remember this is just 0.85 miles around the Iowa Speedway. And, of course, we're doing all of this also for the ALZ.org and awareness of the group, and that's what's so important here today. Just making sure that we'll get a chance to talk much more about ALZ.org as a group, but certainly a chance to talk about what they do, not only to try to end ALZ eventually, but also what they do to be able to help those who are suffering. So great organization, and once again, the title sponsor of today's race. So Graham Bunyan will be starting on the pole position for today's race. Wait for them to circulate and head around. Number of drivers you can see there on your screen getting ready, going through their initial checks, steering left and right, making sure all the pedals and all the buttons, everything is working the way that they want to. We take a look at some of their liveries before they get started. Black Tiger Racing making a big impact here in the league. David Zaleski back in action this week. We'll talk about the championship points in a minute. Mike West, another driver very close to victory last week. He could do it again this week. Fahim Rahman back in the field as well after a couple of technical glitches, but great to see him there. Manuel Gomez Esteban, of course, back in the racing for this week. Iñigo Mardones and David Worrell. Does not look like we will get Danny Alt, however, into today's race. So 14 cars set to do battle in tonight's action around Iowa in Newton, Iowa. Once again, great to have you with us. We are so close to getting this one going as the drivers begin to form up here. Lights are out on the pace car, and that means we will be getting ready to go as soon as that pace car drops off. We jump on board here with pole sitter Graham Bunyan. Very familiar sight out his right side, and that is his teammate David Strid. They've managed to do so much together. Will today be their race? Will they be able to get back into the championship lead? I think that is everybody's question. So we take a look. They are already kind of single file here, but that's only for this moment. We'll see if we can get them up to speed and start seeing some action. Dominic Hart there shown on your screen in fourth place, but it's Graham Bunyan who continues to lead onto the backstretch here at Iowa. look out the back of Bunyan's car. You can see some marbles already starting to collect up on the high side. Bunyan riding very close out to that wall there in the exit at turn 4. We'll see how he does here through turns 1 and 2. Not too shabby. I'm sorry, through 3 and 4 there. Not too shabby and not too close to that wall. Graham Bunyan not really making too many mistakes in this championship thus far in the season. Just having some real bad luck, and so has his fellow countryman David Strid. Last week, Strid, the unfortunate recipient of trying to pit and being taken out in that process. But it's great to have Strid back in the field. I'm sorry, actually, I think he was absent last week, but the week before that was the problem. Maybe I'm getting my memories crossed, but either way, it's great to have Strid back in here. He is one of the best racers in the league, and definitely someone who can challenge for a win or pole position any day. So we look here also on to Jason Lowe, who continues to be your points leader. After last week, continuing being able to get in the great results, and so far, we're 3 races now coming into the 4th race here, as we do have, I guess that's Jimmy Drennan potentially getting up into the wall. He might have had a issue with his with a connection there, which might have shown that. Where's last week's winner? That's what I want to know. Well, there's Dan Ensch back in 9th place. He's dropped 3 positions. Now the question is, why has he dropped 3 positions? Is he running that fuel save strategy? Does he think this is going to go green the whole race? That's a good question. Suppose if we knew the answer to that, we'd be millionaires by now. Everybody would want to know that kind of information. So we're all just kind of left to guesstimate what the answer is. Now here's David Zaleski. Again, somebody we're going to talk about here in just a minute when we can flash those points up there on the screen. But Zaleski is known for his speed here in the league. He's known for, especially at certain tracks, I think maybe the bigger tracks, he's known to be able to be quite a master of this drafting technique and being able to make passes as they are needed, making his way through the field. So keep an eye on Zaleski, because not only is he a championship contender, he could be in for that race win any week. It was great to get a chance, though, to talk to him on the podium a couple of weeks ago. And again, always great to see when these drivers who come out here and race so hard each and every week start to find some great success in the league. Now, a couple of drivers that have already had some difficulty is Fahim Rahman. I don't have any notes that would say that he has hit the wall or crashed, but judging by the fact that he is so far off of the pace at the moment, and it's not quite hitting the top of the revs on the back straight there, I would say it's a pretty good guess that perhaps he has come into contact with the wall or another driver. But either way, Fahim Rahman for Black Tiger Racing kind of suffering right now. He'll be hoping that he can get in and get that car fixed on pit road. And so we go back up to the lead, and it's Graham Bunyan who leads, but look how close this has gotten for 2nd place. That's David Strid, and just behind, Jason Lowe. Lowe, a 3-time consecutive champion in this league, had everything in the bag until a very ferocious Graham Bunyan showed up and decided he was going to take this thing seriously and give it a real shot at a championship. And in that first season where he could devote the time to it, he managed to snatch that title out from underneath Jason Lowe. And it was not due to lack of effort from Lowe. It was just finding small mistakes, little tiny mistakes in each and every race that somehow took him out of it and allowed Bunyan to get up there and take the wins that he did and take those championships. But Lowe now looking on the low side of Strid, and these two absolutely very familiar with one another. Down to the low side, but you see Strid right back across Lowe's nose. And Lowe, tough to tell, did he get up too high there? I'm not sure. But looking from on board, that very shiny chrome paint job. And absolutely great to have you all joining us here in the YouTube chat. Dominic Hart checking in, letting us know that he's watching alongside with his new paint job on board, which we can see now. Kind of forgot to mention that for a moment, but indeed it is the Porsche Tag Hour paint job. And the reason why we can say that, once again, is because Porsche and Tag Hour are proud sponsors here in iRacing. And so that means that we can go ahead and officially show that livery and talk about those sponsors. Unfortunately, that's the way that copyright policy works. So, but Dominic Hart settling into a fun paint job there. And of course, the Porsche esports Tag Hour series, such a big part here in iRacing. Also great news, just kind of relatedly news that I just saw this morning. iRacing announcing a new partnership and a new supercars series coming up that some drivers, especially they're courting Australian and New Zealand drivers, as you would imagine. But a great new series is coming up, and it will be a pro series with apparently like $25,000 purse to be spread out over the season. So things kind of growing up here in iRacing over the last several years, and new esports sponsored series coming about. Of course, the US IndyCar League going through its own growth. As we see, there's some racing going on here in the mid-pack. This is Mike West and Dan Ensch. Ensch has lost 3 spots. Mike West has gained 3 spots. You see just behind Iñigo Mardones for the Necky Racing team. This is fighting over 8th place. And you see Dan Ensch, did he just pull down into the pits? I believe he is disconnected. Unfortunately, last week's winner dropping off, and kind of waiting to see if he might reemerge, but it does not appear as though he will. So unfortunate for Dan Ensch to have that dropout at that time. I'm not seeing him circulating, and in fact, he's falling down through the order. So hopefully he can get back into the race. He did give us some fuel numbers before today's race. We'll get a chance to check in there and give you those numbers. But basically, just very unfortunate that we have these technical issues sometimes. And, you know, it's one of those things. I'd love to say, oh, it's the internet and this kind of stuff happens. But doesn't it happen in real life racing? I know I've seen Will Power stuck on the grid with technical issues, not able to get underway, not able to get his car started. And it's just a frequent thing. My dad, Fred Greenfield, world's greatest race car driver, would often say it's sometimes a 10-cent part that costs you, you know, $1 million championship. And really it is. You tell me the story of how he'd go racing, and, you know, you get out there on the track, or get out to the track. It's always a big thing to do that, as we're just watching these drivers kind of settle into this stint here. And maybe somebody will try to make a pass at some point, but they're just out there trying to get those cars underneath them and wear those tires the way that they want, so that they can try and make some progress and possibly get up there to Graham Bunyan and see if they can do something. But yeah, you get out there to the track. It's a long, usually it doesn't matter if it's 10 miles away or 50 miles away, 100, whatever it is, 500, 1,000. It's always a journey to get everything there. Make sure you have everything on board and in the transporter, in the car. Make sure yourself is there, all the personnel is there and everything, and prep the car, the engine. Make sure everything is at its top working condition. You just go through all the pre-flight checklists and everything like that. And yeah, my dad was out there at Ontario Speedway back in the day in a Formula Ford with 100+ entrants. Hot day in Ontario, California, and a Zeus fastener of all things broke on the car, lifted his engine cowling up. Actually, it lifted up his hood cowling. It was on the front compartment of the car and caused him to not even be able to see. He had to pit, and that was it. And now he was a local racer, but you can just imagine, you hear it all the time, as I believe we saw Jason Lowe get high there in the corner, now goes low to try to dry David Strid on the low line, but not able to pull it off. Will he do it here, coming through 1 and 2 as Strid continues to take this middle of the road approach? Now it looks like Lowe leaning on that right front, a little bit, trying to get inside. Will he be able to do it? Let's jump on board and see. This is starting to get exciting here between these two race winners. Lowe, of course, the multiple-time consecutive champion, as we just mentioned a moment ago, but straight up there in front, so many race wins to his name, he might as well cumulatively be crowned a championship, I suppose. It's got to have one of the high, I mean, maybe not race wins, because Strid is always there for the race win, but not necessarily always able to get it. But certainly for podiums, Strid has got one of the highest numbers, and I would love to know that stat. Now, Graham Bunyan having to get through some real traffic here, and this could be a real problem for him. So, Bunyan, my goodness, having to deal with some serious lap traffic. Now, there's a pink car in front. That's the Team Mazinger car, Super Mango car of Manuel Gomez Esteban. He goes up to the high side. He knows that Bunyan is there. And so now Dave Worrell, same thing. Worrell knows that Bunyan is there. He's going to try to make it easy if Bunyan wants to get by. Bunyan just kind of pedaling here, trying to find a way by Worrell. And there he goes. Now Gomez Esteban having to take a little bit of... And now we're getting some notes that it looks like Dan Ensch has managed to get back. And now we also have David Strid making an early pit stop. So a couple of things. Ensch back in the field here. He's going to be about 11 laps down. But for the driver that's now third in those points, Ensch needs all of the points that he can get. So he's back in this one here today. Now, the early notes provided by Ensch was that he thought it could go 50 to 55 laps here today. And once again, we always appreciate Dan Ensch letting us know. And certainly any of these other drivers that do chime in and let us know how the car is racing, etc. How the setup is handling. But Ensch... Oh, and there we have an incident. That's David Worrell up in the wall. We saw it. It looked like it was just a moment in traffic there. I'm not sure if this is going to bring out a yellow flag. He's going to try to get it off the track, as long as that's not right in front of the... And it does bring out the yellow flag. So the moment that Graham Bunyan did start to make his way around towards that accident, it would bring out the caution. So we're going to have to get in some quick ways to pay the bills here. We're going to start with our title sponsor, and we're not going to go anywhere. We're going to stay side by side as we watch what is the Alzheimer's Association, the title sponsor of this race.
40
what are
years
they
ago,
all about?
Alzheimer's disease wasn't discussed at the dinner table or in the doctor's office. But a group of people devastated by the disease came together to change that. Out of their passion, the Alzheimer's Association was born, and today is the leading organization in Alzheimer's care, support, and research. For the more than 6 million Americans living with Alzheimer's and their over 11 million caregivers, the association's free 24/7 helpline and website at alz.org are often a first source of information. From support groups to online message boards, the Alzheimer's Association is available wherever and whenever help is needed. The Alzheimer's Association is the nonprofit with the highest impact in Alzheimer's research worldwide, behind only the Chinese and United States governments. The association is currently investing more than $235 million in over 650 best-of-field projects in 39 countries. These studies will uncover new methods of diagnosis and deepen our understanding of the risk factors and causes of this fatal disease. As a result of the association's vision and commitment, the scientific community is now poised to discover breakthrough methods of treatment and prevention. The Alzheimer's Association has activated a nationwide network of dedicated advocates who, together with the association, work at all levels of government to address the Alzheimer's crisis. Under the association's leadership, and with support from champions in Congress, Alzheimer's funding has reached a historic high of $3.1 billion, and policies to enhance access to critical care planning are now in place. No other organization has the reach, the knowledge, or the understanding to defeat Alzheimer's disease. But we can't do it alone. Stand with the Alzheimer's Association today to build a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia tomorrow. Join us.
And once again, we greatly appreciate Dan Ensch and bringing that message of awareness for all of us. Usually we talk about, some of the impacts that are felt personally. And of course, Dan, like many of us, frequently part of that conversation with relatives that are suffering. As I said, so many of us suffering with either relatives or, potentially ourselves could find ourselves with Alzheimer's as well. This is all information you can get over at alz.org. It's just something, this is a time of awareness, right? We're all learning about different diseases and genetic diseases, different ones that we can acquire during our lifetime. And this is one that I think is here until we can end it. And so find out how to live with it, find out how to do the most for your relatives that might be suffering from it. And certainly if you think you might have any sort of early stuff that might point to this, it's good to find out about it right now. Also, you can donate and make your impact felt and be able to help to end ALZ once and for all. So it's a great thing for all of us to be able to bring, of course, these messages about. And the reason why I wanted to focus on that video was just to talk about, really just a group of people who had been suffering with this, who decided to come together and do something about it. And so, just a chance for all of us to participate in those causes that we feel so heavily about, and that's where you get that sense with that purple machine there that has never changed its title sponsor since I've known it. And just another great thing for Dan Ensch to be in this field because, like last week, he managed to take victory for the first time. Can he do it here in Iowa? He could do it, but unfortunately, today probably won't be the day, as the LZ machine had a little blink out and had to come back. It's now going to be about, it's actually showing, yes, about 9 laps down now, as he did get that lap back with the wave around. But that's Dan for you, always fighting, not going to come in and sacrifice that strategy and try and get that wave around for himself. We'll get to the points here on our next break, but we are back underway. It's Graham Bunyan who leads us back to green here on lap 53. And looking back from the 101 machine, now that was good timing for Graham and a number of these other drivers in the field, as the tires had just started to wear and he was going to have to take a green flag stop. Instead, most of these drivers taking that first stop under that caution, so we won't have to worry about that at this point. Another subscriber, that's 2 this morning. How awesome. Hey, we've also got Fahim Rahman, who's checking in before the race, saying good morning. Of course, good morning to you, Fahim. Unfortunately, Fahim, having that issue earlier for Black Tiger Racing and dropping backwards in the field, having to, I think he's parked the car for today, but he'll be rooting on his Black Tiger Racing teammates here in the field for certain. Now we've got Dominic Hart up into 3rd place. And also, it does appear as though David Strid has managed to get around Richard Kelbaugh for position. Now, here's an interesting situation. Strid having taken, and he's now racing with teammate Mike West on the outside. Mike in the black-red machine, similar to Graham Bunyan's livery. And then out in front, the 48 of David Strid racing that blue Ganassi paint job, similar to what Jimmy Johnson drives or has driven in the series, in the real life series. David Strid and Mike West and the rest back from him are now shown a lap down, and that's just what happens at a short track like this. Just unfortunate stuff. Is actually, we have Jimmy Drennan now in the wall and up in front of a number of drivers. Fortunately, it does not appear as though he made any contact. We're going to back up and take a look at that. It does bring out the yellow flag. See if we can figure out what happened from Jimmy. Now, he looks like he's just very high on the corner there. Just gets it a little loose. Thing starts coming around and right into the wall. Now, that is a heavy contact there. Let's go ahead, see if we can check this one out. Now, it's possible that Jimmy Drennan maybe had his weight jacker turned up a little too high for exit. Oh my goodness. Just so that rear end just wanted to come around on Jimmy. And such a heavy impact. Really great, though, that this is not a real-life race. So I was just talking about that split coming because of the last caution. And now this caution won't change much of anything, but it will allow David Strid to actually get that lap back and get right back up to the front if other drivers do pit. So we'll see if anybody from the front group decides that they're going to take another pit stop just to top up on fuel. They really probably don't have anything to lose if you're Graham Bunyan, Lowe, Hart, Mardones, or Zaleski, except that Bunyan doesn't want to give up the track position and would not want to give up the lead. He loves to manage the front of these races. So, as promised, we won't go and pay bills necessarily on this break yet. We're going to take a look here at our standings, so as we can get some of this junk off the screen. Here we go. This is our season 15 standings as they were before they came into this race. And you'll note that there's been 3 different winners thus far, and that is your top 3 in this series. So that is fascinating by itself, none of them being Graham Bunyan or David Strid, equally fascinating. And of course, Howard Livingston, who has been up in the top order of this group in this championship for the past couple of seasons, still suffering from that unfortunate roll on a coconut that he did with his foot at the start of the season. And so he's out of the cockpit, unfortunately, but we'll look for some information as far as when he'll be back in. We're hoping within the next couple of races. But this championship is wide open here. You can see how close it is at the top. Less than 20 points, just 19 points from first to third. Ensch would have wanted to get some good points here today, but unfortunately not really able to get that in. But he's sticking it out, and that's the main thing. Lowe still leading the championship and having a good race here, still in that top group, in second place. Lights are still on in the pace car, so we can keep talking. Ryan Bull's taking that first victory. Unfortunately, Bull's not in today's race. Now, there is a drop week, so that won't affect him too greatly. As we look through the rest of the points here, Graham Bunyan, despite some bad luck, still close in the points. Mike West up in 4th in the points early on here. And you can't forget about Dominic Hart in 7th. How about a shout out, though, for Manuel Gomez Esteban in 7th place there. He had a great finish last week, I think, in 4th. So continuing that great streak of runs. Now, here's the driver that I really want to look at, David Zaleski. Now, he didn't race last week, but look at his points total, 71. Now, if you just look at the bonus points, you can start to see how valuable those bonus points would be right here. If he just had the same amount of bonus points as Graham Bunyan, well, he'd be how many points higher? 3 positions higher in the championship. That's how close it is, because just 1 point separates 5th from David Zaleski in 8th. So those bonus points really paying off, and they will pay off in the long run for certain, and something to keep an eye on here in the US IndyCar League in Season 15. So the lights going off on the pace car means we'll get a chance to talk about Stick Quick, the presenting sponsor of the US IndyCar League. at our next commercial break. But of course, they're such a great part of the league, and I just love doing those live improvisational reads. It's 7:30 in the morning out here on the West Coast of the United States. I feel like I'm in improv class when I get to do them. But here we go. The great part of having a network and getting to do hour-and-a-half broadcasts. A lot of great time to fill and not having a co-commentator. Yabarillo, let's play. Yaber, great to see you. Hi, what's up? Hello from Spain. I know you're rooting on the Spanish drivers here as well. Mr. Super Mango. That's Manuel Gomez Esteban. As we're back underway here, under green in Iowa. And of course, Iñigo Mardones, also one of our Spanish drivers in the field. Both of them kind of... Actually, Mardones, we've got up in 4th place right now after all of those changes of positions and the pit stops. So Mardones, the highest ranking Spanish driver, could today be Mardones' day to be up there on the podium. That is something we'll keep an eye on, and I'm sure Mr. Yabarillo is certainly excited. Nice overtake, Manuel, doing the train style. Choo-choo, you betcha. I mean, that's really what it's all about. You got to take advantage when you can. If another driver gives you the room to go through, then you just go ahead and do it. Now, I did want to jump back real quick. We take a look at what happened earlier, just while we have a moment. This was David Worrell. Actually, David Worrell's second crash. We're going to take a look back a little bit earlier there and see what exactly happened to Worrell. There it was. He got onto the outside of Manuel Gomez Esteban. There just really wasn't the room there, and a little bit of netcode catching him out. Unfortunate. Did show David Strid there, but of course that was David Worrell. So, indeed, the international component, a factor, and something that these drivers really do have to think about during the course of the race. Because if you're close to another driver, it you know, even if they're a state away from you or in the same state in the United States as you, of course there's states in other countries as well, so I suppose that works as well. But if they're just very close in proximity geographically to you, usually what's known as your ping time is actually pretty low. So you don't suffer these internet geographic spatial problems that come with being separated by distance. So in other words, usually there's what's called a ping time. It means how long it takes from one driver to send a message to the server and then receive it back. And so that ping time sometimes goes up and down depending on how far you are away from the server. But if you're racing with somebody else who's from another continent, the information that they're sending and receiving might be slightly delayed. And as a result, here on the service, you end up with something called netcode. It's plagued internet racing since the beginning, and it's just one of those things that we all deal with. But you got to give that extra little bit of space. And I do have to say I've been very, very fortunate in the times that I've been racing on iRacing, for the most part, to not really have those issues. And not really, I mean, I've been way too close to other drivers that sometimes I can't believe that I don't get netcoded out of a race. But it is just one of those things that it can affect you at any time. And at the same time, I've been racing what I thought was pretty far away from somebody, giving them lots of room, but they were from another continent as well. And they took me out by 10 feet, and 10 feet of netcode. Like, you could have put a whole broom between our cars, and I still got affected. So it's one of those unknown factors that's unfortunate. Not to drone on it too much, but it's just unfortunate for somebody like Worrell, and for anybody who wants to run so close to the competition and really treat this like it's a real life race, that there's still just a little bit of internet engineering to go. One of the things, though, as we see that David Zaleski has actually gotten around Dominic Hart. Hart now pulling it into the pits. So Hart making an early pit stop here for the back half of the race, as we're only on lap 80. And I'm not sure what that call would be about. Because, I mean, this would be very, very early on to make a call such as that for the possibility of setting yourself up for a green flag rest of the way sort of schedule. So now falling down through the order. And of course, one of the other issues with that, as we look back now to Hart, who's rejoining the track, one of the other issues with that is that, as we saw, a number of these drivers are now a lap down. You can see on the left-hand side. And so if you take an early pit stop, and a yellow comes out, at some point in the near future, you may not be in the advantageous place to be able to get your lap back. And so that is one of the gambles that you make if you take an unscheduled pit stop or you try and go off strategy. Nevertheless, Dominic Hart, he's the guy with the race win in the league, not me. And he's also taking pole position here, so I think he knows what he's doing. And possibly, as these two are racing now, that's MJ Ramirez there on the high side, Hart on the low side. MJ, not only a competitor here and a fiery competitor at that, he's really coming in with a bang here into the US IndyCar League and making his presence known with some great finishes, but also taking over those responsibilities, as I mentioned last week, of race steward from Richard Kelbaugh, longtime steward here in the league, Richard Kelbaugh. And by the way, why don't we go ahead and flash up to the man in green? There he is. He's having a great race. He's up into 5th place. Now, he is also a lap down, but he's the lead car a lap down. What a great place to be in. So should a yellow come out, he'll be able to get that lap back and be up there in contention for a top 5 or more at the end of this race. And that's what it's, again, that's what it's all about. You know, the guy behind, David Strid, has many pole positions to his name. And by the way, Strid not on the same lap as Dominic Hart there. Hart a couple of laps down because of his pitting schedule. So they are not actually racing for position. Hart now ducking in behind Strid. But as I was just going to say, and we'll watch that battle because it's actually one of the tightest battles that we have at the moment, but that's what it's all about, is coming out here and trying your best and keeping that car on track, taking advantage of strategy as you can, as it becomes available. And you see a driver like Richard Kelbaugh, who's, well, we'll just say there's a number of older drivers in this league. There's a lot of the drivers, in fact, are over the age of, I would say, 40 years old. And Richard, part of that crowd, as Strid now getting close to the back of Kelbaugh, so we'll see whether or not Strid wants to make that move and get around, or whether he's trying to save fuel behind Kelbaugh. But Richard's had some great runs this season, and he's managed to get top 5, managed to get up into the points well, and I think that's the main thing, is that no matter where you're at, whether you start off in iRacing and you feel like you're not as good as everyone else, you're struggling, maybe you get a little bit of progress, you get a couple of podiums or a race win, and you join a league like this, it can be very easy to kind of fall into that mid-pack or the back of the pack and not be able to challenge and not be able to get better. But we have seen Richard Kelbaugh do exactly that. And he's also racing official racing as well, out there in the official races each week. But he slowly improves. He improves his racecraft, and he improves his ability to hang on to that car in traffic. And that's really the keys, just kind of learning all of what there is to learn about these Dallara IR-18 IndyCars, learning about the tricks of the trade and how much you have to adjust the cars based on the tires, adjust your driving style, adjust for that drafting that goes on up in front of the car, and mitigating that aero push, and then just deciding when and how to push forward, how to control the tire strategy, when's the right time to pit for fuel. All of this is stuff to know that you think it's just go out there in an Indy car and drive fast and turn left, until you get into it and you find out you go in there with that strategy and you'll either end up in the wall or you'll end up in last place at the end of the race. So Kelbaugh coming through and now showing that he has the race pace to stay in front of a fantastic driver like David Strid and hold his own. And right now, Kelbaugh in a fantastic position should the yellow come out and he be able to get that lap back. Either way, top 5 in the cards for Mr. Kelbaugh today. But back up front, it is Graham Bunyan working on the underside there of Manuel Gomez's Esteban. And as he gets through his, now onto his car's number in terms of laps, the number 101, there's Bunyan into the pits. We'll get to follow this driver in and see how he does. How does this pit entry work so quick to get in? And you got to be right down at pit speed limit, lane entry limit there. And he certainly is down in time. So Bunyan probably not going to be dealing with any sort of pit speed penalty. And there you see Jason Lowe able to do the same. Iñigo Mardones pitting from second place. David Zaleski answering that call there in third. So all of your leaders now down onto pit road. David Strid, though, managing to climb up into fourth, and now, because of his alternate strategy there, you also see Dominic Hart trying so hard to now take that position. He understands that there's something on the line here, Hart does. If he can get in front of Strid, he can control some aspects at the end of this race and possibly be there on the lead lap and able to fight for a win or a podium. But he understands it's crucial to get around Strid at this point and get out there into the lead. Not only just to position himself for the end of the race, but also to get those valuable bonus points. These drivers all competing for this championship, and just 1 or 2 bonus points each race can make such a huge difference. There, down to the low side, it is Dominic Hart. And Hart, again, trying to get that lap back from Strid. Strid doing everything he can to keep Hart a lap down. And finally, it does emerge. The Tag Hour Porsche machine of Hart brings it forward. Now, I should mention that technically, now that I think about it, it's possible. In fact, it is, as I look more carefully at this livery, I promise I won't tell if anyone doesn't, but yes, there is in fact a violation there that we won't talk about. You know, you don't want to look at it that way. As you see Hart now working with Mike West, this is the battle for 6th place, but yeah, those copyright policies as a broadcaster always sitting there in the back of your minds, but we won't say anything about it. They are official sponsors, and I think that's really the main point of that policy. Nevertheless, Hart, and there you see West just getting up into the wall. Unfortunate for him. That may damage that car. Does appear to be off the pace a little bit. Can he? Oh, and there he comes into the pits. He is feeling the damage. So Mike West having to make a stop here. And that will end his run in that top 7. We'll start dropping back. Now, Graham Bunyan has retaken the lead here after his pit stop. Jason Lowe continues in second. Iñigo Mardones taking over third spot, and the Spaniard continues his run of good luck. Will he be able to cash in today and get that podium position, start marching up in the points? That is a very good question, and as I said, circle this man, the 07 of David Zaleski, the New Yorker in the yellow, black, and white car, coming through in a hurry, now up into fourth place. And will there be more in the cards? Either way, this is exactly what he needs to do to be in that championship hunt. And, you know, I tell you, just talking with him, I mean, I think that he was really ready to possibly get up and get some race wins here again in the US IndyCar League. But I don't think he expected that the first couple of races would go so well for him. Zaleski up there in the points, and with a really solid finish today and making sure that he gets in all the rest of the races of the season, he could be definitely in line for top 3 in the championship before this is all over. And now a look at the 76 machine, Dominic Hart. He's now about 11 seconds adrift of leader Graham Bunyan. Bunyan stopping on lap 101, Hart in last on lap 79. So that tells you the difference between these drivers and just how far back Hart has fallen, but managed to climb back in the meantime. Go ahead and get information up there for you. Of course, you are watching the US IndyCar League. We're now over halfway of round number 4. Season 15 here in Iowa. The virtual Iowa Speedway. And it's, of course, so great to have everybody here with us on YouTube, watching live, as well as, of course, on replay after the business is over. But 120 laps now coming up to being in the books, and it's been a Graham Bunyan show from the beginning. He really hasn't had too much to deal with other than some lap traffic, but again, anything can happen in the course of one of these races. And you can see that Jason Lowe just 1.56 seconds adrift. Now, what's happened to Jason Lowe recently? Well, let's take a look at that. You can see that on a few laps, Lowe has actually been consistently faster. But once again, it does kind of matter what happens in front of you. And Bunyan just a slight bit faster that time through. You can see the delta there just growing ever so little over the course of the laps, maybe just about 1/10 of a lap for Lowe, but he keeps his head down, and here under the night lights at Iowa, we continue. Top group is Graham Bunyan, who leads it in first. Second place for Jason Lowe, and third for Iñigo Mardones. David Zaleski in fourth, and Dominic Hart, your top 5. David Strid now sitting just outside, and we have Mauro Ramirez unfortunately having an incident just as we were starting to flash through some things. Now, MJ had just left the pits. We're going to back it up a little bit, see if we can figure out what happened here. Or perhaps he's trying to come into the pits. I'm not really sure. Let's see if we can go back a lap and see if we can tell what happened. He leaves the pits here. Kind of watch him as he goes through his pit stop cycle. And then he'll head back out onto the track momentarily. We'll see if we can tell exactly what happened with this machine. Fortunately, kind of limited in how fast SDK lets us fast forward things. I guess he sat here on pit road for quite some time and then exited the pits. So we'll jump back here. And indeed, that car just kind of spinning around. Either way, Looks like a solo car incident and MJ ending up in the pits. Now, what does this do? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. We'll cover all of this. We're not going to go anywhere. You'll be able to see this all side by side as the drivers leave pit road. But it is time to pay some more bills. And you know how we do that? We do that by talking about the world's best businesses, the ones that are the sponsors here in the US IndyCar League. And this sponsor is, they just seem to keep sticking around. They'll stick to anything. They're like that clingy partner that just won't go away, but in a good way. Because you know what? This is the Stick Quick. And the Stick Quick is something I've got it in my house, I've got it in my tool shed, got it on my front door, got it in my office. Do you have it in your life? Well, you may not even know what it is yet, but you will soon. Because there on your screen on the right-hand side, you see what that is? That's your gardening tools right there next to your shed. They're being stuck up to the gardening shed, but how is that happening? Is it magic? What about this vape right there, right next to your stereo in your car, right where you need it, held handy? Is it glued there? Is it epoxy? What exactly is happening? Well, it's actually magnetic. That's the secret. Stick Quick unleashes the world of magnetics and helps you get your whole world organized. These silicone, ultra heavy duty, chemical resistant, UV resistant silicone rings, as I mentioned, have magnets embedded in them. And that means right here on your toolbox, as soon as you put one of these Stick Quick rings around your tools, you can slap it right up there onto your toolbox. Later, anything else that's metal. Think anything, refrigerators, medicine cabinets, anything steel, iron, you can just stick this right onto it. Now, if it doesn't, like here in the shower, have a magnetic surface, that's okay too, because the Stick Quicks come with their own little pads that are sticky and reusable. Use them for a while in one place, take them off, move them to another place. 6 of them come to a package. They're different sizes, so it fits whatever you want to be able to put into them. And they come with the little sticky pads, and they come in this really cool little packaging, and in multiple different colors. You want orange, red, blue, green, yellow, or black, you are in luck. They've got it for you. So head on over to stickquick.com today and get yourself one of these packages, 2, 3, a half dozen. Buy them for your friends and family. Buy them for random strangers. Just support Stick Quick because they've been with the US IndyCar League for so long, and we do appreciate greatly their support. And, head over there and tell them that you saw them during the broadcast today, and they'll probably send you a very nice response letting you know how much they appreciate you watching the US IndyCar League and wishing you luck with your Stick Quick. Hey, I still got mine. They're working great. They haven't been damaged. That's nothing. These things are probably going to last forever. Anyway, back to the action here. So what has happened on track? Well, you missed nothing because we were side by side there, but Graham Bunyan retakes the lead. Jason Lowe back out into second. Iñigo Mardones in third. Dominic Hart in fourth, and David Zaleski in fifth. Now, all these drivers taking service, but I tell you what, David Strid getting that lap back after that early pit stop and back into race winning contention. And I know that Graham Bunyan will be very happy to hear that if David Strid can possibly get back up there and help him out a little bit. Maybe guard off some of these challengers like Jason Lowe, who might find himself up there at the end of this race. 131 now coming on to, I guess, the 131st lap here of 218. It's clicking off pretty quick. We look just behind. That's Dominic Hart, who's just gotten around Iñigo Mardones. As I was talking about, I knew that battle with Strid and Hart would be valuable. Now Hart able to capitalize on that as he's retaken back up to that lead group. Now Hart into that third place and podium position. Will he have something for Jason Lowe, or will Iñigo Mardones be able to challenge? We'll find out shortly, as we are now over halfway and looking down the backside of this race. So these laps will tick off very quickly. And these drivers are going to be focusing on exactly where they want to be for the end of this one already. I mean, certainly you never really forget that sort of thing, your strategy or where you want to be at the end. It's always a decision as to where you would prefer to be. But you have to adapt the whole race along. Depends on where the yellows are, depends on who you're running around, who you might want to be drafting, saving fuel, or possibly who you might want to be passing because you don't want them to have the lead on you. All of these things running through these drivers is their minds as we watch on board with Iñigo Mardones and having to decide 80 laps away or 70 laps away with where you think you want to be. It sounds so far out in the future, but again, if you blink, you miss it. The next thing you know, it's on top of you. And that's, again, just one of those keys here is just really understanding how fast these strategies do need to change. We look out the back of Iñigo Mardones, and he may have a new issue on his hands. That's David Zaleski, who's getting quite close now. Mardones up there in that third spot, but will Zaleski let him stay there, up there, in that fourth spot now, after losing that position to Dominic Hart? But will he stay there? That is the question. We look back up forward, though. It's Jason Lowe in second place, still trying to track down Bunyan, who seems to be able to just throw on a little extra rocket fuel and head off the front of these packs here at Iowa. But again, the trick here at Iowa is in that mid-stint to end stint, and everybody's got the same setup. David Strid in this field, building a fantastic setup, as he always does for these drivers, and he puts so much time into it. Greatly appreciated. Part of that great team effort. You could call him part of that admin team, I suppose, with the fact that he handles so much of these setups. But it's also a great team that comes out on Saturdays and tests the setups and makes changes. Sometimes other drivers making great contributions to that setup that will get used each and every week. But you can't really do anything about the setup. So, for example, that is the great difference between this and, say, if you're racing official racing, there is what's known as fixed setup racing. Great time saver. You don't have to do any setup tweaking. And for those of you that have looked at the setups, for example, of this Dallara IR-18 IndyCar, there's a reason why literally only engineers can basically understand some of this stuff. And I'm just being serious, as we did just miss it, but David Zaleski getting by. We'll go back here and take a look at this. This was a moment ago. Zaleski working the high side, getting that draft around Iñigo Mardones. Mardones thinking better of trying to challenge very closely, keeping that car nice and low, and allowing Zaleski to take the position. And once again, just discretion, better part of valor. If you're faster than me, go for it. Take it. I'll see if I can get it back from you. Sometimes it's worth fighting for, but not all the time. But in official racing, you've got fixed racing, and then you've got open racing. So open setups, of course, allows that engineer in you to really come out and play. And many hours and days, weeks, months, years wasted, if you could call it that, to setup grinding, trying to find that little bit of an advantage. Just 2 months ago, of course, the Indy 500, always bringing out the teams and drivers who put in just kind of endless time trying to find those extra tenths and hundreds of thousands of a second around a track, putting in so many laps. And a couple seasons ago, racing in another league that had open setups, I managed to build a setup here that it's one of the bigger leagues that gets broadcasted. Managed to build a setup for our team that our lead driver, team owner, Ray Kingsbury, was able to go out and take victory on a really great night here at Iowa. And I tell you, the advantage was all in that mid to late stint. We just had a car and a setup that was unbeatable. Even the best in the business, the best teams, were trying to figure out what we did different, and we'll never tell them. But that's one of the great things that you can do, is build setups with friends. And we built a great one here at Iowa. And so how do you emulate that if you're in a fixed setup? Or, you know, in this league, it's fixed setups, so you don't get to control the setup. It's really just, and you know, if you're doing oval racing in officials and you get the fixed setups, it's the same thing. How do you maximize that fixed setup and still understand what needs to get done over the course of the stint with the car? We just had an incident on track. I believe it was Manuel Gomez Esteban. We stay green, but we're going to take a look at this incident. Make sure we get onto the correct incident. There we go. Gomez Esteban high in the corner. And that looks really similar to what we saw Jimmy Drennan do earlier. He just got really high in the corner coming through. Let's see if we can back it up a lap and take a look on board and see if we can tell exactly what happened. Gomez Esteban drifting up high there through the mid corner. You know, really what happened was there, once again, talking about that sort of middle of the stint situation, is really that you have to adjust the car. You have to adjust your driving style. And the tires, as they start to get worn, the whole car starts going through different characteristics. And the main thing is to stay super on top of those handling characteristics of the car. Because, for example, if you're overcooking the right front on the car, and that's how you would do it. Let's ride on board with our leader, Graham Bunyan. We'll talk through this as he circulates here, lap 159 of 218, and is really nowhere near additional traffic out there. But you see him go through the corner now. He takes a sort of middle of the road approach, not bringing it down too low. He allows it to drift out up high onto the track. And by taking a higher line on the track, a more optimized line on the track where you start the corner at the turn-in point, nice and far out towards the outside of the track, turn the car down into the corner, let it take a nice, easy line through the mid portion of the corner, and then the same thing with exiting. Don't try and come off the corner too quickly. Don't try and pinch the car on the exit. You want to have the car just nicely coast through the corner with very minimal hand input. And watch the steering wheel from Graham Bunyan. Multiple-time champion, too many race wins to count. Look at how much work he's doing with that wheel. Practically nothing. It's actually, it's always wonderful to watch one of these masters in action, because this is how it's done. Very, very little work. Now, how does he manage to do that? He adjusts that weight jacker. He adjusts his driving line. He can tell if he's driving in a little too low. Let's say he's working on traffic, and he has to keep going to that low line. That means his entry point is going to be a little lower on the track, and that means through the whole rest of the corner, he's got to put a little bit more steering input into it. Start turning the car a little bit to the left more, and that puts more wear on that on that right front corner. And what happens when that thing starts cooking out? Well, the car doesn't want to steer into the corner as well. And if you come by itself after maybe 5 or 10 laps of doing that, the car is just going to, on exit, want to march right up into the outside wall. And so if you take a normal line through the corner that you would have taken 10 laps ago, just maybe not thinking about it, what's happened to your right front, all of the sudden, you can find yourself right up into the wall, and it just catches you out. You think 5 laps ago it worked, 5 laps now, 5 laps later it doesn't work. So these feelings that these drivers get while they are circulating, and that seat of pants feel, As much as you can retain that in iRacing and simulation, that is the key to staying on top of your car throughout the whole course of the stint. And once again, whether you're doing that with an open setup, a fixed setup, it doesn't make any difference. And that's the difference between the masters and the ones that can go out there and seemingly win week in and week out, no matter what setup they're handed. I mean, Graham may be the teammate to David Strid, but Graham Bunyan is a very busy man. And I know David has his own things that he's doing, but I mean, Graham he works full time. He's got a family. He's got everything going on that would normally take people out of being able to do competitive racing. And he really, the first time he gets a chance to test out these setups is during the practice sessions on Saturdays, a lot of times. So, you know, for Graham to go out there each week and look like he's been practicing that setup and grinding on that setup with David for a week, it's just an example of how, you know, the cream rises to the top. You know, it's the age-old story of the sim racer who has 15-year-old equipment and manages to go out there and kick everyone's butt despite them having direct drive wheels, etc. It's the same thing. He just has that feel for the car and knows how to manage a car over the course of the stint. So that's what everyone else is trying to do and catch up to. Dominic Hart doing that well, but still having to catch up to the level of these masters. And some of these other drivers as well. Jason Lowe, right in that category of drivers who have been, you know, racing in real life. Many years of real life racing. And sometime I'd really like to get into it with Jason and find out how much he learned during those real life years and how much of that really carries over into sim racing. Because I always, that type of weird intellectual person who finds all of that stuff fascinating, but it really brings out the reality and the life of these drivers. As we see Dominic Hart there into the pits, trying to get that undercut strategy, get that last pit stop out of the way. He and David Zaleski, actually Zaleski first to bite. So very interesting stuff here. Now Bunyan pulls the trigger and Jason Lowe just behind. So all of our leaders now into the pits. This is going to be interesting stuff. Mardones already getting a lap back. David Zaleski now emerging ahead of Mardones. This is for position. There goes Mardones by on the track, and Zaleski slides back a spot. Mardones up into fourth. Mardones stopping 2 laps earlier, so that undercut just working a little bit for the 666 car. Always so weird to say that. Mardones, though, now getting that position going by Dominic Hart, who has just emerged from the pits. So Mardones from Barcelona, Spain, now up into the podium position in third. Somewhere out there in YouTube land, Yabarillo is watching and rooting on fellow Spaniard Iñigo Mardones, who is on the march, now just 5.79 seconds behind, as we see this battle now happening between Zaleski and Hart. Hart on the outside. This is definitely a battle for position, a battle for pride. Both of these drivers in position in the championship to make it a fight. And this is one of those races where you'll look back on at the end and say, I was right there to make a challenge, but that other driver got the better of me. Who's going to win this battle here at the front? We watch to see. It looks like Zaleski still holding on the bottom side, and also in the news, last time by Graham Bunyan setting fastest lap of the race, 17:01, 2/10 faster than any other driver thus far. So if you think he doesn't know how to put down some fast laps, there is your indicator. We'll keep watching the gap between he and Jason Lowe, which is now over 5 seconds. But Zaleski now tucking back behind Hart. This is your closest battle on track at the moment, and this the battle for 4th place. 1.7 seconds that gap up to Iñigo Mardones. So once again, that just telling you how that set of pit stops and the undercut of just a couple of laps for Iñigo Mardones really has paid off here in a big way, able to get a full 1.5 seconds out on these two very fast competitors behind. So 5.3 seconds, as we mentioned, up the road to Jason Lowe, and Jason Lowe now a second back from Graham Bunyan, and really, I guess that's been the story all day. Nobody's really had any speed for Graham. It was kind of looking like his day, unless something else were to cause him to drift back, but for those of you that have been watching for all of these seasons in a row, this, no surprise, sometimes it is the Graham Sunday. And what a pleasure it is to watch when it is, because my goodness, it's like watching Michael Schumacher, Sebastian Bourdais, Lewis Hamilton, or any other of these masters. When they are at the top of their game, they are practically unbeatable. Looking back here at this battle that has been going on between Zaleski and Hart, now the question is, did Zaleski use too much trying to get by Hart? Did he try to get by too much in those early laps there? Starting to see some fog coming out, and Zaleski starts to lose it, and he does, unfortunately not able to correct it, up into the wall, and the yellow will come out. No drivers make contact with him, and that is some unfortunate stuff just as we were on board watching. Let's go back and see if we can figure out exactly what took place there. Starts a little too far into it to really tell, but it looks like we'll go on board. He's following, tries to set up for the outside, and now that is the car coming around on entry, which is very infrequent. But what you would have to say there is more likely, very possibly, and we'll watch this though, perhaps Zaleski is now shown a lap down. That's unfortunate. I was thinking he might be able to save staying on that lead lap, but yeah, it kind of, to me, looks like he had possibly overcooked that right tire trying to keep on that low line with Dominic Hart. And Hart, staying on that high line as they were battling just a moment ago, and able to keep the car, the tires a lot more cool, just keeping an easier line on the high line. David Zaleski driving in harder on entry and trying to keep that car held down in the mid-corner. You're going to be burning up that right front tire, as I was literally just spending 5 minutes talking about that whole scenario. And as a result, not only are you cooking the right front, but you're cooking the right rear, because you're turning up the weight jacker to try to keep the car down through the whole corner. And that is what can really mess up the the unpredictability on the car. So basically, when the right rear starts getting cooked, there's nothing you can do but underdrive the car at that point. You have to let the right rear cool down. And if you try to keep up, especially as Zaleski was trying to do there in the draft of Dominic Hart, if you try to hold with that, the aero push coming off that lead car can do really the last of what needs to be done to just make your car completely come around on turn entry or not. Now, this is an interesting situation. Graham Bunyan not coming into the pits. Iñigo Mardones not coming into the pits. Here is Jason Lowe, Dominic Hart coming into the pits. Now, this is going to give them roughly 16, 17 laps newer tires, and David Zaleski as well, but Zaleski still a lap down, so by him coming into the pits and taking the damage repair, he's not going to be able to get his lap back. Now, will 15 laps of difference make, on these tires make a big difference? Well, let's take a look at something. if we can, we're going to take a look at the lap time history for Graham Bunyan. Now, his fastest lap before this caution, the fastest lap of the race, came at a 17.0. Then he had you saw in lap 186, he had a 17.3, and then a 17.5. Now, if the difference is a tenth or two a lap between fresh tires and older tires, and again, you know, if Graham Bunyan comes out there and he can only do 17.5s, and Jason Lowe can do 17.0s, Iñigo Mardones is also on the same strategy as Bunyan, so he's kind of a sitting duck. You know, David Strid just in front of Jason Lowe. He's actually got Zaleski separating him and Jason Lowe. This is just, there's so much good strategy happening here. Strid is Graham Bunyan's teammate, so Strid is probably going to come up to the backside of Bunyan before very long. But Lowe and Strid both have fresh tires, so Strid can't really camp out behind Bunyan for very long. And this very well, if the tires are the big factor, could turn into the Strid and Lowe race, effectively taking control out of Graham Bunyan's hands. And, you know, you'd have to look at Bunyan and say, well, I mean, that's not a bad move to stay in the lead of the race. But once again, if there's more than a tenth's difference on those tires at all, until that difference gets wiped off of these tires, there are going to be two drivers that have a distinct advantage over the top two drivers in this field. That is David Strid and Jason Lowe. So, my goodness me, we are set up for some interesting final laps here. Who's going to take victory? We have no idea. 5 cars on the lead lap, 3 of them with fresh tires, including Dominic Hart. Will it be Graham Bunyan and Iñigo Mardones? You see Richard Kelbaugh in the middle there. Kelbaugh with a bit of a slow start, and that jams up the field a little bit. Looking back from Bunyan's machine as he heads through turn 1 and 2. He's going to try to get the biggest possible lead that he can. Now, you got to keep in mind, that car's already got hot tires. He doesn't need to warm up the tires. He can just basically go as soon as that green flag comes out. These other drivers going to be bringing up the tires a little bit, feeling out the weight jacker, and then trying to lay those fast lap downs. So let's continue to watch. Here's David Strid. Will he be able to get by the lap car there of the lap car of Rick Kelbaugh? Yes, he does. But Graham Bunyan sets fastest lap 16.99. So if you thought he was dropping off the pace, the purple lap came the lap before, and he does it again with a 16.990 this time. So unbelievably fast times, and Mike West now unfortunately having a crash. We're going to take a look at what happened there. This was coming through turn 4, just gets up a little high and then tries to turn it a little bit more, put a little bit more input into it, and that just brings that rear end around, unfortunately bringing Mike West's day down to a close. Now, where are our leaders? Well, it's 1.5 seconds back to Iñigo Mardones. Mardones a little bit slower each lap than Graham Bunyan. Not a surprise there. But what about David Strid? Well, Strid is starting to catch up. He's now 1.15 seconds back, and that gap is closing to Iñigo Mardones. You can see the first couple of laps after the yellow flag, Mardones with the advantage. But lap 198 and onwards now favors Strid. And that means that it'll start to favor Lowe as well. So 2.83 seconds, the gap up from Strid to Bunyan. And we're going to start really watching this time as it's starting to come down. Here's Mardones, less than a second now behind him to David Strid. So second place for Mardones at the moment, but will it hold? Driver from Spain, racing for Necki Racing Team, in position to have his best finish here in the league. But he may not be in the right strategy at the end of this one, as it's now 0.95 seconds to Strid. And now we look back at Strid, and with Lowe in tow, not too far back, but not quite close enough to challenge for that third spot yet. Just 15 laps to go. 3 seconds now separates David Strid from Graham Bunyan. Very likely, as we're watching last lap for Bunyan, 17.60, Strid 17.57, Jason Lowe 17.65. Right now, Graham Bunyan able to match the times of the drivers with the brand new tires. For how long, that is the question. So Strid continuing to try to close the gap. First to Mardones and then to Bunyan, but Bunyan continues to put in faster laps. 17.45 last time by for Bunyan. 17.53 last time for Bunyan. Strid 17.50. And Lowe was 17.54. So just Lowe not able to clip into the times. Bunyan able to match with 11 laps to go. It very well could end up being Graham Bunyan who does take victory here today. It was a scare for a minute with the tire strategy, but so far nobody able to get those tires up and working well enough that they can clip into this lead. Iñigo Mardones, 10 laps to go for him in second place, looking to potentially get his best finish here on VirtualRacing.Network. And that would be something to behold, as it's been a long time that we've been covering this league. And always great to see new drivers getting success here in the league. And old drivers as well. Iñigo Mardones up 12 spots today. Congratulations so far to him. 8 laps to go to see whether he can hold on. He's holding that balance. 1 second back between Mardones and Strid. And as long as Mardones doesn't make any big mistakes here, it's looking like it's his race to hold on to. 4th place right now being held on to by Jason Lowe. Once again, it's another one of those days that he wasn't necessarily in first. He was challenging for second, but staying in that top 5 is something that can really work out well for that championship. And he'll need to do that with Graham Bunyan potentially going to win this race. Six laps remaining in the final car, and the lead lap is Dominic Hart. Dominic, there you see out of Abu Dhabi, international driver, getting to live that high life there in the UAE. Quite an exciting area, quite an exciting place to be in Abu Dhabi, and of course, site of Formula One as well. But Graham Bunyan is the man of the day so far. Last week, it was Dan Ensch who finally came through and was able to get that victory in surprising fashion, but maybe not so. He was able to get the fuel savings that he needed, and the race just unfolded perfectly. Today, Graham Bunyan had a couple mini scares, but today was just pretty much business as usual for the 101 machine and the Brisbane, Australia driver, who is probably pretty happy to head into colder season now in Australia. The white flag out here in Iowa. Just one more to go for these drivers as they circulate one final time. I don't think anyone's got anything to possibly make a move on anyone else. We'll keep an eye on it. It looks pretty solid for Graham Bunyan, who brings it across the start-finish stripe one final time to take the checkered flag and victory here in Iowa. Congratulations to the dominant victory for Graham Bunyan, who took a few weeks off from making those dominant statements here in the U.S. IndyCar League, but by race number 4, he's back in business. Graham Bunyan, 4-time consecutive champion, back in championship form. So with Iñigo Mardones coming in second and David Strid finishing third, Jason Lowe just outside in fourth, and Dominic Hart in fifth. So they form up here on the start-finish straight, and as this one goes official, now give you the official finishing order for today's race, and allow these drivers to hop out of their cockpits, possibly do their bio breaks, etc., stretch out a little bit, and get ready to do their post-race interviews with us. So stay tuned momentarily for that. Do make sure that we have all of our microphones live and unchecked. And we see that Mardones trying to do some donuts with Strid and Bunyan here. Beautiful stuff to see all drivers celebrating here in Iowa. Cool stuff, and a great chance for celebration for different reasons for all three of these drivers. Graham Bunyan taking victory, as mentioned, by a couple of seconds. Actually ended up over 3 seconds over Iñigo Mardones. But it was much more of an interesting race for that for second, third, and fourth. Mardones managing to snag that victory, practically a victory, in second place. As Jason Lowe was up there for a while, and David Strid certainly had the speed to be up there, but suffering a problem early on, coming into the pits, getting off strategy, and having to get that lap back. Either way, Strid managing to take third here today and get back up there into the points. This is going to shake some things up in the points. Bunyan will march back forward. Mardones as well will climb up into the points. It's very likely that Lowe might lose his championship lead. We'll get to that next week as we find out some of the details. Some more of the race favorites that we didn't get a chance to see up there in the front. MJ Ramirez, unfortunately falling out of the order with contact. And, of course, Jimmy Drennan having that incident earlier. Dan Ensch, Mike West coming together in different incidents and having problems on the track. And David Zaleski having a great day until the end. Fortunately, he won't continue his streak of top fives, but he'll still stay up there in the points. So we'll take a look and see who's managed to pop in for us. You know what? We got Dan Ensch. And, hey, Dan, I just want to say it was great to see that purple car out there with the end ALZ on the side pod. We got a chance to talk about the Alzheimer's Association, but I was hoping that maybe you'd pop in here and let us know how your race was today, how the week has been since your last week. Have you been doing a lot of interviews with television and media, and finally talk about the Alzheimer's Association. How you doing, Dan?
Oh, pretty good. Yeah, of course, after that win, I did the whirlwind tour of Paris and Brisbane and all kinds of things. But I'm back home now and having a good time. A little bad luck today. We lost an ECU early in the race, and I had to stop and reboot it, and that cost me 11 laps right off the bat. So I gave everybody a fair head start and basically just hung in there and tried to keep in mind the points race and see what happened. And managed to get an 8th out of it, so I'm not going to fall too far down the list, and that makes me happy. But of course, the real reason I'm here today is for Alzheimer's Association and trying to raise awareness for the fight against Alzheimer's. End ALS is the slogan. We need to end ALS. I know you know that I have a very personal stake in this, and after seeing this for quite some time now, it's just a devastating thing. And there's so many people out there that are faced with this either within themselves or with their loved ones. And you need to go to alz.org, alz.org, get some information, get some research, find out what's going on, who can help you, and really take charge of your own situation a little bit. It's not easy. It is not easy at all, but there's plenty of support out there if you can look for it. And I recommend you go down Alzheimer's Association and get that alz.org.
Absolutely. And can't stress that enough. It's not just those suffering, of course, it's all of the family that suffers along with them. And, obviously you've been doing it for a long time, and they've been a great resource to you. And we really greatly appreciate every week you bringing that out, but certainly taking the initiative to do it in the way of a title sponsorship for this race just gives us more reason to play videos and let everybody see for themselves what a great organization Alzheimer's Association is. And they'll be the ones to bring the end, for sure, of ALZ. In the meantime, great resource for all that information. And thank you so much, Dan, for not only that, but as always, being a great competitor. And like you said, you finished in the top 10. Some days it's not a top 5, but when you're looking at the championship, you just try and recover and do the best with what you got, right?
Yep, you do the best with what you got. And, of course, Graham did that. Congratulations, Graham, on a nice win. Congratulations, Iñigo. You've seen it coming for a long time. Iñigo is picking up the pace every single race, and it won't be long before he gets that win. And also, thanks to David, good third-place finish, and thanks for the set, David. That was a nice set to run with.
Absolutely. Great people to thank, great people who work in this league, and great competitors as well. Thanks for being one of those great competitors, Dan. Good luck. We'll see you next week, bud.
My pleasure. Have a good time, and thank you, too.
All right. And that's Dan Ensch reporting in. Yes, a disappointing 8th, and we'd always love to get the title-sponsored car into victory lane, be able to show it off a bunch, but nevertheless, it's always showy, and what a great program they're running over there at Alzheimer's Association, ALZ.org, Last Lap Motorsports. Great team. So now we can get over to some of our other drivers that were in the field. Let's go ahead and talk with, we've got, let's see if we could go with our, we don't have Iñigo Mardones. Perhaps that could be a language barrier, and I speak a little bit of Spanish, but probably not enough to make that work. Maybe someday we get somebody, a translator, in to help us with that. Either way, he won't be able to join us today. David Strid, also Mr. Shy Guy, so maybe someday we'll trick him into getting into the booth with us. But we do have Dominic Hart that we can talk with from today's race, and he had quite an interesting race. Hey, Dominic, are you there with me, bud?
Yep, I got you, Trevor.
Excellent. Well, great to have you with us here on post-race chat. You were up there in the front for a while, but it looked like a struggle all race long. You fell a lap back, had to get the lap back from that point on. Racing a new livery this week, pretty exciting stuff. First of all, do you have a Porsche, or is that in the cards? And second of all, what was your race like today?
Yeah, I think the running cost of a Porsche probably negates that one. But no, the race, yeah, I mean, I was sitting in third for a long while, or third or fourth. I hit the wall, and just that caused me to come in early on that green lap pit stop, which was a bit out of sync. It put me behind traffic, which wasn't good. That lost me a bit of time, but then it all got caught up with the yellows and everything, and I ended up back in third. I need to have a look at the replay, because Iñigo and Mr. Zaleski caught up a load of time on me in that last pit stop. I need to find out what that was about. And yeah, I mean, we were chatting at the end of the race there, me and Jason, we thought chucking on some new tyres, and David did as well, would have been the thing, but Iñigo held out very well there, and got a good second.
Now that was fascinating.
Graham ran away with it, with a win, of course.
Of course, and that's, I guess that was my question that I was, before I rudely interrupted you. Sorry for that, but was quite interesting how the tire strategy worked out at the end. We'll get a chance to talk with Graham, but what were your thoughts there at the very end? You thought chucking on the new tires would work. Why didn't it work? Why do you think that it wasn't enough to pull in Graham? Because he came out, not only set 2 fastest laps of the race at the beginning of that last stint, but he managed to match pace for you the whole way through. Why do you think it wasn't as much of a factor, even though he was on 20-lap older tires?
To be honest, I think he probably just got a hold of how to drive that car around this track far better. That was it, really. I mean, the car, for me, seemed to slide a lot, especially trying to use... I mean, going into the low line on the corners seemed to be quicker, but I had to keep the high line just to sort of try and keep the tyres in. But yeah, it's the way it ended. I mean, Mr. Strid got a good third there. We were talking at the end. I think he got a little bit of luck, shall we say, with that last yellow.
Indeed.
But it's the way it goes, isn't it? I mean, it happens for everybody at some point.
Well, luck is a big factor. Unlucky, though, for you to touch the wall, and that is something we talk about every week, just how you can be the best racer in the world, but you're thinking of 14 things at once and or just make unfortunate contact. But sometimes it's just so easy to let the car drift up the track, or just think it's going to hold down low on the track, and then it just wants to go higher on exit or something. Nevertheless, 5th place here. You're up in the points, looking good for the end of the championship. You're going to be with us the whole season, and what are your thoughts going forward? Any places that you're circling as your favorites on the calendar?
Nothing springs to mind on the calendar. I will be here for the rest of the season, yep, of course. Nothing really springs to mind as a favourite. Try my best at all of them and see how it goes. Hopefully keep nearer the top and with a good chance of trying to keep with the other guys.
Absolutely. Well, there you go. Dominic's ready to show up every week. Next week, we've got Atlanta, and then Auto Club, Texas, Watkins Glen, New Hampshire, Phoenix, Michigan, and Indy. Great tracks, all very different in their layouts. And so far, Dominic, you've been fast at all the different layouts. So we'll look forward to seeing you next week, and good luck with the rest of the season.
Yep, thanks. And thanks again for the sponsors and, of course, yourself for the broadcast.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Good luck. And so that's Dominic Hart joining us there from 5th in today's race. There's a look also at some of the calendar of the upcoming events here to be coming up here every Sunday, of course, right here, 10 o'clock Eastern Time on VirtualRacing.Network. Make sure to hit that big red subscribe button and like this video. And now we'll get a chance to talk with our winner before he heads off to bed for the evening. Graham Bunyan, you know, I had thought for a while you'd forgotten how to win these races. I thought this, 3 races, no wins. What's going on with Graham Bunyan? We had started the whole investigation to find out what had been going wrong in your races. But Graham, you came out there today and you not only managed to snag that pole, but you never really gave up the lead. You were fast all day. You made no mistakes, and you dominated this race. Congratulations on your first race win of season 15.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. And sorry, just excuse my voice. Joys of working in a hospital. Dreaded cold. First race was a washout due to internet. Second race, I have no idea, and I can't remember what happened yesterday at the moment.
You're a busy man, as we mentioned in the broadcast, and we were talking about how David Strid provides the setups many times, and it would seem as though when you see Graham Bunyan, David Strid's teammate, out there, it would seem like you both just work on this setup together. You talk about all the secret ways to work the car that nobody else will figure out. You put in 10,000 laps out here at Iowa, so of course that's why you win. But tell everybody the reality. How much time did you spend in this setup, in this car, before today's race?
I spent about 7 minutes yesterday and probably about, 15, 20 minutes today.
And there you go. But it's also not the first time you've ever driven at Iowa. You drive it, officials, etc. How about talking about that? Because you were quite a master of today's race, quite a master of the IR-18 IndyCar. All your experience here in Iowa, in the IndyCar, not just in this league, but official racing, do you think that plays a role in knowing how to manage that car through the race, knowing how the car wants to be driven, and really knowing what to expect at Iowa? Or would you say that every time out it's a start from scratch?
Look, sometimes it's a start from scratch, and then other times it's just a repeat of itself each season. But in the US Indy League, the setup seems to be different each time we hit the track. So there's always some different element about it, whether it be track temperature, because we run a dynamic weather and track. So whether it's that, but within the fixed season, it keeps your skill up because you have a lot of different people out there who are pretty aggressive. So, these short tracks are a favourite of mine. I love a track where you've got to actually work a car, use the accelerator, use the brake if you've got a trail brake around a corner. The issues that Dominic was speaking about, I didn't have any of that. With the car being loose, it's just a matter of just working out the tools in that 20 minutes of practice when I joined today. So it helps to do all that type of stuff and all that different stuff. And road racing helps as well with this car. I can't stress enough for people who do this car in this league or out of the league to try and get some road racing under your belt as well, because it really helps with this car.
And that's an amazing point. Of course, we could talk for an hour on a podcast about that kind of stuff for sure. But definitely, jumping around to different cars can sometimes help broaden your car controllability. But certainly, as you mentioned, just trying all the different circuits, learning going right, left, and controlling it when it does want to start to slide. He was talking about it sliding, and I do wonder now, maybe my final question for today, you led most of this race, and certainly most of the stints where it was restarted, you didn't have to work your way back up from the back. Do you feel like maybe the reason why it was easier for you than some of these other drivers is because you led at the front and controlled that clean air, were able to manage much easier, whereas they're back there trying to fight in traffic and get around other drivers?
Yeah, definitely. I was lucky enough not to experience the aero push, but when I was coming up to lap cars, I only made a very slight change, like it was 3 or 4 clicks one way, and it seemed to drive the same as what it was when I was in clean air. So I really didn't face the same issues as those guys. Yeah, of course, clean air would help, but all of those stints, except for the very last one after that yellow, I was in fuel map 3, sometimes fuel map 4. So I had to make it, being out in front and clean air, I had to make it to that crucial lap of 44.
Well, you did make it to that lap, and then, as you said, from that point, I mean, you're always thinking so far ahead, and that's really just what we're talking about in terms of, keeping all of these strategies in your head. And now you've got a cold, so you've got even less space going on in your head. You probably got a runny nose or something to deal with during the race, but you've got to keep all these aspects, how the car is running, what your fuel strategy is, who's trying to undercut you, all of these things going through. And Graham, I just tell you, it's been just such a pleasure to watch over these seasons and continue to watch. Today, for example, all these drivers need to go back and watch Graham Bunyan's hands on that steering wheel to understand exactly what that needs to feel like. Graham, you don't even move your hands through the corner. The car practically drives itself. And not to mention that, but also your impeccable pit strategy and the way that you manage to control the car at the front and get through lap traffic. A lot of patience there. And just, once again, always such a pleasure to watch. Such a master at work. Congratulations, Graham. And if you're not in the lead of the championship at the end of this one, you'll probably be pretty close to the front. So working on 5 consecutive, how does that feel?
Yeah, I think from here on in I should be pretty good. Hopefully, if I don't have any other hiccups. I know I've got surgery coming up in August, so hopefully I can still race. I think it comes up towards the end of the season then. So,
oh boy.
But just on the pit strategy, I didn't even know that we had to pit from the back entrance until like the back out of 2 and in between 3. I didn't even know. I didn't even practice that, so I was so cautious coming in. Yeah, all new to me as soon as I hit the track. It was all new. It was just that David said to me, "We've got to pit from the backside." Or actually, no, Jason said it, and and I didn't know there was 3 laps of qualifying either until Mike West had mentioned it to me. So there was a lot of things here. So it's not just me driving, but there's a lot of information I get from Mike West and David and AJ. He's always there doing number crunching and all that type of stuff. So Danny's always there supporting. Ryan Bowles would normally be here, but he's gone away on a family vacation. So look, congrats to the podium. Iñigo, amazing. Well done to your second place there, and David third. That's a good comeback, but I just didn't think tyres would have been a factor. I think they were good to hold on, and I think I did my 2 fastest laps on that last stint with 20 old tyres. So.
Yes.
Yeah. So I only then that was when I was using fuel map 1. Otherwise, I didn't use fuel map 1.
Well, that's an interesting point, and we, again, you and I, Graham, can talk for hours. I won't keep you too much today because you've got your cold. You got to get to sleep and get some rest. But I understand how much there is to do and how much there is to keep your mind on, and yet you make it look easy out here. Everybody's trying to get new tires on you, and you just go faster than them. They try to undercut you, and you still stay out there in the lead and pull away from them. Graham, it's a pleasure to watch you each and every week, and we'll enjoy watching you next week from Atlanta as well. Good luck.
Nah, no worries. It's a pleasure for you to be broadcasting each week, and thanks to ALZ.org, who Dan brings along every season. So thank you to Alzheimer's. And and Stick Quick as well, Richard Kelbaugh. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, that is your winner and 4-time consecutive champion, defending champion, Graham Bunyan of Australia, who's just taken victory here at Iowa Speedway and come back into the championship contention hunt. He never really dropped away, but as he mentioned, he had some difficult weeks there. Iñigo Mardones with a shocking second place finish here today in Iowa, and third goes to Graham's teammate, David Strid, with a fantastic recovery as well. I think that's going to do it for us today, and we do appreciate everybody checking in with us over on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe, as I mentioned, same time next week, Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, wherever that is in your part of the world. And if you subscribe, you'll just get it fed right to your home feed on YouTube, and they'll send you an email if you want, or notifications. Like this video for more. On behalf of the U.S. IndyCar League, all the competitors, and the administration, if you'd like to join the U.S. IndyCar League, make sure to click the link down in the description. It'll send you off to the member page. You can be part of the family. If you'd like to sponsor the league, you can go ahead and do so. Send some inquiries through the link in the description as well. It's been my pleasure. I'm Trevor Greenfield. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. Until next week, bye-bye, everybody.